Have you ever wondered why some doors simply close in your life, even when you so desperately wanted them to remain open? You know, that job you didn't get, that relationship that ended suddenly, that opportunity that slipped through your fingers at the last minute? What if I told you that these closed doors aren't punishments, but rather divine protections especially directed towards you, a Taurus? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. The universe works in mysterious ways, and often what seems like a devastating loss is actually a blessing in disguise. For you, born under the sign of Taurus, with all your determination, persistence, and need for security, understanding this concept can completely transform the way you see life's obstacles. Throughout this video, I will reveal 9 clear signs that the divine is closing doors around you not to punish you, but to protect you from paths that could deeply hurt you. These signs are cosmic messages specifically directed towards Taurus energy, and recognizing them can prevent you from wasting years of your life insisting on doors that should never be opened. Stay with me until the end because the 9th sign will show you exactly how to differentiate a door that is temporarily closed from one that has been sealed forever by divine protection. Prepare to see your losses with new eyes. Sign 1. You feel an inexplicable discomfort even when faced with seemingly good opportunities. Taurus, you know very well that feeling of security that comes from within, that comfort that your sign values and seeks so much. But what about when you come across an opportunity that on paper seems perfect, that everyone around you says is wonderful, but something inside you just doesn't feel right? This inexplicable discomfort is the first sign that the divine is protecting you from something your eyes cannot yet see. Do you know what happens? We human beings have a natural tendency to want to force things to work, especially when we invest time, energy, and hope in a certain direction. And you, Taurus, with your persistent and stubborn nature, have this characteristic even more pronounced. When you decide you want something, you're just like a bull, you lower your head and move forward no matter the cost. But the universe, in its infinite wisdom, has installed an internal warning system in you that you often ignore out of pure pride or stubbornness. This system manifests itself through physical and emotional sensations that you simply cannot explain logically. It might be that tightness in your chest when you think about accepting a certain job offer. It could be that anxiety that arises out of nowhere when you're about to sign a contract. It could be that insomnia that torments you the nights before an important decision. Your body is literally screaming at you to pay attention, but your rational mind, so characteristic of the earth element to which you belong, tries to silence these warnings with logical arguments. You tell yourself that you're being irrational, that you're letting fear control your decisions, that you're wasting a great opportunity. But here's the truth that few tell you. Your intuition, especially when connected with divine protection, knows things that your conscious mind hasn't yet processed. It picks up energies, reads situations, perceives hidden intentions, and anticipates consequences that you would only discover months or years later, when the damage is already done. When the divine closes a door to protect you, one of the first things that happens is this inexplicable discomfort that makes you hesitate, even in the face of what seems to be a golden opportunity. And why does this happen specifically with Taurus? Because your sign is intrinsically connected to security, to comfort, to what is solid and reliable. When something threatens that security, even subtly or in the future, your internal alarm system goes off. The problem is that you often ignore this alarm because the opportunity seems too good to refuse, because other people are pressuring you, because you've already invested so much that giving up seems like a waste. But let me tell you something important. Every time you ignore this inexplicable discomfort and force open a door that should remain closed, you are putting yourself in situations that will bring you much more suffering than learning. You may end up in toxic relationships that will undermine your self-esteem for years. You may accept jobs that will exploit you to exhaustion. You may make investments that will leave you financially ruined. And all this because you didn't want to listen to that divine whisper that warned you from the beginning. So pay close attention to that first sign. When you feel that discomfort that doesn't make logical sense, that feeling that something isn't right even if everything seems perfect on the surface, don't ignore it. Stop, take a deep breath, and recognize that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe is trying to spare you from much greater pain in the future. Sign 2. Obstacles repeatedly appear in the same path. When you're a Taurus, giving up simply isn't in your natural vocabulary. You're the kind of person who, when you decide on something, goes all the way no matter how many obstacles appear along the way. This persistence is one of your greatest qualities, but it can also become your greatest weakness when you insist on paths that the universe is clearly blocking for your own protection. Now, pay attention to this second sign because it's powerful and very revealing. When the divine wants to protect you from a harmful path, it doesn't just put one obstacle in front of you. No, it creates a sequence of obstacles, one after the other, as if it were building an increasingly higher and more obvious barricade. And you know what happens? At the first difficulty, you think it's just a normal challenge of life and you continue. At the second, you believe you need to be stronger and more persistent. At the third, the fourth, the fifth, you're already exhausted, frustrated, but you still insist because giving up goes against everything you believe about yourself. Let's use a very practical example to help you understand better. Imagine you're trying to build a relationship with someone. At first, the person gives you mixed signals, sometimes seeming interested, sometimes disappearing for days. First obstacle, you think it's just insecurity on their part and keep investing. Then you discover they still maintain close contact with an ex, but they assure you it's just friendship. Second obstacle, you swallow the discomfort and continue because you're already emotionally involved. Next, constant conflicts arise due to completely different values. They want one thing, you want another, nothing seems to align. Third obstacle, but you believe love conquers all and persist. Then comes the incompatibility of future plans. They don't want the same things as you, but you convince yourself they'll change with time. Fourth obstacle. And so it goes, obstacle after obstacle, and you, stubborn Taurus, keep pushing a door that's clearly locked, wasting months or even years of your life on something the universe is screaming for you to abandon. But why does the divine do this? Why doesn't it just close the door once and for all, so obviously that you have no choice but to give up? Because, my dear Taurus, you have free will. The universe respects you too much to simply take your choices out of your hands. It gives you signs, places obstacles in your way, warns you in every possible way, but the final decision will always be yours. And the more obstacles you ignore, the clearer the message becomes that that path is not for you. Think about it. If something is truly aligned with your divine purpose, the path may have challenges, but there will also be signs of encouragement, small victories, moments of confirmation that show you that you are on the right track. But when obstacle after obstacle arises without any positive sign in between, without any light at the end of the tunnel, without any evidence that things will improve, that's not the universe testing you. It's the universe protecting you. And do you know what the greatest danger is for you, Taurus? It's transforming your admirable persistence into destructive stubbornness. It's confusing determination with denial of reality. It's believing that you can make anything work with willpower alone, even when all the cosmic signs are showing you the opposite. So take an honest look at yourself now. Is there any area of your life where you are facing repeated obstacles without any real progress? That project that never gets anywhere no matter how much effort you put in? That relationship that is a constant emotional roller coaster without ever stabilizing? That business opportunity that always encounters a new problem when you solve the previous one? If the answer is yes, perhaps it's time to consider that these are not tests of perseverance, but clear signs of divine protection guiding you away from a path that would only bring you harm. Sign 3. Important people begin to leave your life for no apparent reason. Taurus, let's talk about something that has probably hurt you a lot throughout your life. People who simply leave your orbit without a clear explanation, without a big fight, without an obvious reason. For you who values loyalty and stability in relationships so much, and who takes a long time to trust, but when you do, it's forever, having someone leave your life feels like a painful betrayal. But what if I told you that many of these departures aren't abandonments, but rather energetic cleansings orchestrated by the divine to prepare you for something better? This third sign is particularly difficult for Tauruses to understand and accept, because it goes against everything you believe about lasting relationships and loyalty. When the universe wants to protect you from negative influences or prepare you for a new chapter in your life, one of the most common ways it uses is to remove people who are no longer aligned with your greater purpose. And the most confusing part is that these people aren't necessarily bad or had bad intentions from the beginning. Often they are people who were important at a certain stage, who fulfilled their role in your journey, but who have now become anchors holding you back in old versions of yourself that you need to overcome. Let me explain how this works in practice. You have that friend of many years who has always been your confidant. You've shared so many moments together, built precious memories. But lately you've started to drift apart. Conversations become more superficial, meetings rarer, and eventually you hardly speak anymore. There wasn't a fight, no definitive breaking point. It was as if life simply took you in different directions. And you, Taurus, are left wondering what went wrong, blaming yourself, trying to force a reconnection, sending messages trying to keep alive a friendship that is naturally dissolving. But here's what you don't realize. Perhaps this person represents a version of yourself from the past, a mindset you need to leave behind, a pattern of behavior that no longer serves the person you are becoming. Perhaps your conversations always revolve around complaints, gossip, pessimism, and the universe knows you need to surround yourself with higher energy to reach your next level. Or perhaps this person, even unintentionally, always makes you feel small, always diminishes your dreams, always brings insecurity disguised as worry. And the divine, in its infinite wisdom, is gently removing this influence from you before it completely sabotages your chances of growth. The same happens in romantic relationships. That person you loved so much, with whom you planned a future together, suddenly begins to distance themselves emotionally. Things no longer flow as before. Constant misunderstandings arise. The connection seems to have evaporated. And you, with your Taurian nature of never giving up on what you love, try in every way to save the relationship. You make concessions, change behaviors, try harder and harder, but nothing seems to work. The person is simply no longer truly there, even if they are still physically present. And eventually they leave your life definitively, leaving you devastated, questioning your own worth, wondering what you could have done differently. But here's the truth that will free you from this guilt. If someone is meant to stay in your life, the universe will create encounters, not constant separations. It will facilitate connection, not turn it into a daily battlefield. It will bring harmony, not endless conflict. When you have to fight exhaustively every day just to keep someone by your side, that's not true love, that's attachment. And the divine loves you too much to keep you trapped in attachment dynamics that drain your vital energy. So this separation from people, however painful it may be at the moment, is often a necessary cleansing. It's the universe removing from your life those who weren't contributing to your growth, who were keeping you stuck in old patterns, who were occupying a space that needs to be emptied so that the right people can enter. And the most beautiful part of all this? When you finally accept these separations as divine protection and stop resisting, stop trying to force stays that are no longer healthy, you open space for much more authentic, deep connections aligned with who you truly are and are becoming. If you're enjoying these revelations, if these words are touching your heart and making you see your life in a new way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell, so you don't miss any special content we've prepared for you. Comment below where you're watching from. I love to know where in the world you're following these messages. And if this guidance is truly making a difference in your journey, consider supporting the channel by becoming a subscriber. Your contribution helps keep this work alive and reaching more and more people who need these words. Let's continue together on this journey of self-discovery and transformation. Sign 4. You lose financial or material resources unexpectedly when planning to invest in something specific. Look how interesting this fourth sign is, especially for you, a Taurus, who has such a strong connection to material security and financial resources. When the divine wants to protect you from a bad investment, a business deal that would lead you to ruin, or a financial decision that seems good but is terrible, one of the most direct ways it uses is simply to remove the necessary resources before you make the mistake. And this happens in the most unusual and seemingly frustrating ways. You save money for months to make a certain investment, then suddenly an unexpected expense arises that consumes exactly that amount. The car breaks down, a health problem appears, an essential appliance stops working, some forgotten debt comes back to haunt you, and you become absolutely frustrated, feeling that the universe is conspiring against you, that you will never be able to progress financially, that there is always something pulling you back when you are about to take a step forward. But wait, let's analyze this from another perspective. What if these sudden financial losses aren't bad luck or misfortune, but rather divine intervention preventing you from making decisions that would harm you far more than the momentary loss of that money? Let me give you a real example that happens very frequently. You hear about an investment opportunity that promises incredible returns in a short time. Everyone around you is participating, everyone raves about it. It seems like the chance of a lifetime to finally achieve the financial security you so desire. You set aside the money, you're ready to invest, but then an emergency happens that consumes exactly that amount. You're devastated, feeling like the unluckiest person in the world. But 6 months later, you discover that the investment was a Ponzi scheme, and everyone who participated lost everything. That emergency, which seems so unfair at the time, actually saved you from a much greater loss in years of debt trying to recover what you would have lost. Or perhaps you're determined to buy a specific property, that dream house that will finally give you the stability you seek. You've already set aside the down payment, you've made all the plans, everything is perfect. But then unexpected complications arise, the money needs to be used for something else urgent. The negotiation stalls for reasons that seem absurd. You're devastated, you feel like you've missed the opportunity of a lifetime. But months later, you discover that the property had serious structural problems that weren't detected during the inspection, or that the area has fallen into disrepair, or that the seller was running a scam. Again, what seemed like a frustrating roadblock was divine protection saving you from a huge loss. And do you know why this is especially significant for Taurus? Because your sign has a deep need for material security. You feel threatened when you lack financial stability. You work tirelessly to build your wealth. So when opportunities arise that promise to multiply your resources quickly or guarantee that much desired security, you're tempted to jump in headfirst without analyzing all the risks. And it's precisely in these moments that the universe needs to intervene more drastically to protect you. Because you are so determined, so focused when you decide something, that if that money were available, you would invest it without thinking twice, ignoring the warning signs that your rational side would try to show you. So, the next time you're planning a significant investment and suddenly lose the funds unexpectedly, before you rebel against the universe, stop and ask yourself, isn't this a form of protection? Am I being spared a mistake that I would only recognize as a mistake when it's too late? This doesn't mean you should stop planning, working hard, or seeking financial growth. It simply means you need to develop discernment to recognize when a financial blockage is a temporary difficulty to overcome, and when it's a clear sign that that specific path isn't for you. And usually, the difference lies in the other signs that accompany this situation. If, along with the financial loss, comes that inexplicable discomfort we mentioned in the first sign, if repeated obstacles arise as we discussed in the second, if wise people around you begin to warn you about risks you're ignoring, then it's very likely that the financial blockage is indeed divine protection, and you should be grateful for it instead of fighting against it. Sign 5. You experience health problems or extreme exhaustion when you insist on a particular path. Now let's talk about a sign that's impossible to ignore, although many stubborn Taurians try. When your own body begins to collapse as a way to stop you from continuing on a destructive path. Taurus, you need to understand something fundamental about how the universe communicates with you. When subtle signs are ignored, when emotional warnings are suppressed, when energetic messages are disregarded, the divine uses the last available resource, which is your physical body. And for you, an earth sign with such a strong connection to the material plane and physical sensations, this is one of the clearest and most undeniable signs. It works like this. You're insisting on a job that's destroying you inside. Every day is torture, the environment is toxic, the demands are abusive, you don't feel valued, but you persist because you need the money, because you fear financial insecurity, because Taurus doesn't give up easily. So what happens? Your body begins to manifest symptoms. First, there are frequent headaches that you ignore by taking painkillers. Then comes insomnia. You can no longer rest properly even when exhausted. Next, digestive problems appear. Your stomach is constantly upset. Your blood pressure rises, your back constantly aches, you develop skin conditions, allergies appear out of nowhere. And yet you continue pushing your body beyond its limits, believing it's just a phase, that you need to be strong, that this is just how life is. But here's the hard truth. Your body is literally screaming at you to get out of that situation. Each symptom is an alarm telling you that you're in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing, wasting your vital energy on something that doesn't deserve you. And when you ignore these alarms for too long, they intensify. That headache turns into a debilitating migraine. That insomnia becomes chronic insomnia that affects every area of your life. Those digestive problems evolve into ulcers or more serious illnesses. Your body is doing the work your mind should be doing, which is to get you out of a harmful environment or situation. This also happens in destructive relationships. You're in a relationship that emotionally drains you, where you give a lot and receive little, where there's manipulation, disrespect, or disguised emotional abuse. But you, with your Taurian loyalty and fear of being alone, keep trying to make it work. And your body develops chronic anxiety, panic attacks, depression, extreme fatigue that no amount of sleep resolves. You lose your appetite or eat compulsively, gain or lose weight drastically, your immune system weakens, And you get sick frequently. All of this is your body telling you loud and clear. This person is hurting you. This relationship is slowly killing you. You need to get out now. Or it could be a project, a dream you've been pursuing for years, but that simply isn't aligned with your true purpose. You keep forcing it because you've already invested so much time, so much money, so much energy that giving up seems unthinkable. But each day you work on this project leaves you more exhausted, more empty, more disconnected from yourself. You no longer feel joy. You no longer have genuine motivation. You're just going along out of inertia and stubbornness. And your body responds with a profound fatigue that doesn't improve with rest, with a constant feeling of heaviness, as if you were carrying the world on your shoulders. This exhaustion isn't laziness, it isn't weakness. It's your energy system telling you that you're wasting your life force on something that doesn't nourish you. Here's something you need to engrave in your heart. The divine will never guide you down paths that destroy your health and well-being. Challenges, yes, those will exist in any meaningful journey. But systematic destruction of your physical and mental health? That's a giant red flag that you're in the wrong place. When something is truly aligned with your divine purpose, you may get tired, you may have difficult days, but there's a feeling of fullness, that the tiredness is worthwhile, that you're building something meaningful. But when you're insisting on a door that the universe has closed to protect you, the tiredness is different. It's a weariness that drains you, leaves you hopeless, and progressively makes you ill. So pay attention to your body's signals. If you're developing new health problems or seeing old conditions worsen since starting a particular job, relationship, or project, it might not be a coincidence. Perhaps it's the most direct way the divine has found to make you stop and reconsider your choices before it's too late. Sign 6. Negative synchronicities accumulate whenever you try to move forward. Taurus, let's talk about a phenomenon you've probably experienced but perhaps never clearly identified. When the universe creates a sequence of negative coincidences so specific and repeated that they simply cannot be dismissed as common bad luck. Synchronicities aren't just those magical, positive coincidences that confirm you're on the right track. There are also negative synchronicities, those patterns of unfortunate events that repeat so systematically that they seem to be sending you a clear message to stop and change direction. And when you're a Taurus, with your tendency to keep your head down and keep moving forward, even when everything around you is crumbling, these negative synchronicities need to be especially evident to grab your attention. I'll give you some very practical examples to help you identify this pattern in your own life. Every time you make a date with a certain person, something unexpected happens. On the first date, their car breaks down. On the second, they get sick. On the third, a family emergency arises. On the fourth, the place where you were supposed to meet closes unexpectedly. This happens once, twice, 3, 4 times until you start to realize that maybe it's not just bad luck. Maybe it's the universe telling you that this connection shouldn't happen. Or you're trying to close a business partnership with someone. Every time you're about to sign the contract, something goes wrong. The documents have errors that need to be corrected. The lawyer postpones the meeting. A problem arises with the space you plan to rent. The main supplier backs out of the deal. 1, 2, 3 specific obstacles that make it impossible to move forward, even if you're doing everything right. This isn't a lack of competence or persistent bad luck. It's divine intervention creating barriers to prevent you from entering into a partnership that would harm you in the future. Another common example, you're trying to move to a specific city, you even got a job there, everything is on track. But then the job offer is withdrawn at the last minute, due to an unexpected restructuring. You find another opportunity in the same city, you get excited again, and then you discover that the cost of living has increased so much that your salary wouldn't be enough. You don't give up, you look for a third alternative, and this time an urgent family problem arises that prevents you from moving. 3 attempts, 3 different obstacles, but all preventing exactly the same thing, your move to that city. Maybe that city isn't the right place for you. Maybe there's something there that would bring you unhappiness or danger. Maybe your true destiny lies in a completely different direction, and the universe is desperately trying to redirect you. What makes negative synchronicities different from just a streak of bad luck is their specificity. It's not that you're having a period of generalized bad luck in all areas of life. It's that whenever you try to do one specific thing with a specific person, or in a specific direction, things go wrong in very particular ways. And here's what you, as a Taurus, need to understand. Your persistence is a virtue when applied to the right paths, but it becomes self-sabotage when you use it to force paths that are clearly blocked. When you see a pattern of 3 or more negative coincidences preventing the same thing, stop interpreting it as a test of your determination. Start seriously considering that this is a warning, a protection, a divine redirection sparing you from something you would only identify as negative when it's too late to avoid it. And do you know what the most liberating part of recognizing these negative synchronicities is? When you finally stop fighting them and change direction, it's amazing how things suddenly start to flow. What once seemed impossible despite all your effort, when you're on the right path, happens almost without you having to force it. The right people appear, opportunities open up, resources emerge, everything aligns in a way that seems almost miraculous. Not because you became more competent or luckier, but simply because you stopped swimming against the current and finally allowed yourself to be carried in the direction the universe was trying to show you all along. If these revelations are making sense to you, if you're starting to recognize these patterns in your own life, and feeling that click of understanding, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Comment below where you're watching from. I want to know which of these signs has impacted you the most so far. And if this content is truly adding value to your spiritual journey, consider becoming a supporter of the channel. Every contribution helps us continue bringing these transformative messages to you and thousands of other people who need them. Sign 7. Wise and trustworthy people repeatedly discourage you. Now let's talk about a sign that directly affects Taurus pride. When people you respect, who have more life experience, who have already proven their wisdom, and who genuinely care about you begin to discourage you from following a certain path. Taurus, you need to understand something about how the divine works to protect you. Guidance doesn't always come directly from mystical revelations or supernatural signs. Often, the universe uses the people around you as messengers, especially those who have a broader view of the situation because they have already gone through similar experiences or because they can see with the objectivity that you have lost due to being emotionally involved. The problem is that you, with your stubborn and independent nature, often interpret unsolicited advice as unwanted interference. When someone tries to warn you about the dangers of a path you have chosen, your first reaction is usually defensive. You think the person doesn't understand your situation, that they are being pessimistic, that they don't believe in your potential, that they are trying to limit you. And then you close your ears and your heart to what might be exactly the guidance you needed to hear. But pay attention to this. When it's not just one person but several different people from different circles of your life who start expressing the same concerns about the same decision of yours, that's not a coincidence. When your best friend warns you about that person you're getting involved with, and then your mother expresses the same concerns without knowing about the previous conversation, and then a coworker mentions something similar, and even that distant acquaintance makes a comment that resonates with the same themes, maybe it's time for you to stop and really listen. Because the universe is using multiple voices to convey the same message to you, hoping that eventually you will notice the pattern. I'll tell you how this usually happens in practice. You meet someone and are completely enchanted. You only see the qualities, you ignore or justify the obvious flaws. But the people around you, who are not under the filter of passion, begin to notice worrying signs. A friend comments that the person seems controlling. Another mentions that they speak ill of ex-partners in a worrying way. A family member notices that your behavior has changed negatively since this person entered your life. But you, passionate and determined to make it work, dismiss all these warnings as unfair judgments from people who don't know the other side of the story. Months or years later, when the mask finally falls and you see the truth about that person, you remember all those warnings you ignored and realize that, if you had listened, you would have saved yourself a lot of suffering. Or you want to make a risky investment, start a dubious business, accept a job offer that seems too good to be true. And several people with experience in the field warn you about the risks, show you statistics, share their own experiences of failure in similar ventures. But you, with that Taurian confidence that it will be different in your case, that you are more determined, more competent, more lucky, ignore all the advice and go ahead. And when you eventually discover that those people were right, that the risks they pointed out have materialized exactly as they predicted, you bitterly regret not having listened. Now, this doesn't mean you should give up your autonomy and do everything others tell you to. It doesn't mean you should live your life according to other people's opinions. It simply means that when multiple wise, experienced people who genuinely care about you start expressing the same concerns, you should at least seriously consider that perhaps they are seeing something that you, being too close to the situation, cannot see. And here is an important criterion for differentiating wise advice from mere negativity. People who truly care about you will not only discourage you, They will explain the reasons for your concerns. They will show you patterns, share relevant experiences, and specifically point out what they see that worries you. On the other hand, negative or envious people will only demotivate you without foundation, will speak in generalities, and will plant doubts without offering concrete insights. So make this distinction. If someone tells you not to do something simply because they don't want to see you succeed, or because they're envious of your courage, ignore them. But if someone tells you not to do it because I've done it and ended up like this, because I'm seeing these specific signs that are identical to situations that ended badly, because based on my life experience I recognize this pattern, then pause and really consider what is being said. The divine often uses the collective wisdom of the people around you to protect you from mistakes you are about to make. Don't let your Taurian pride prevent you from receiving this precious guidance. Sign 8. You feel an inexplicable peace when you give up or walk away. This 8th sign is one of the most powerful and yet most ignored, especially by stubborn people like you, Taurus. You know that decision you've been putting off for months because it feels like giving up, a defeat, a failure? That situation you're prolonging out of sheer stubbornness, even though it's completely draining you? Well, one of the clearest signs that the universe has closed that door to protect you is the feeling that comes when you finally have the courage to let go, to walk away, to give up. If instead of despair and regret you feel a profound relief, an inexplicable peace, a lightness you haven't experienced in a long time, that's divine confirmation that you made the right decision, even if your rational mind is still trying to convince you otherwise. Let me explain the psychology and spirituality behind it. When you finally let go of something the universe wanted you to let go of a long time ago, it's as if a gigantic weight is lifted from your shoulders. You didn't even realize how much that situation was consuming you until the moment it's no longer there. Suddenly you breathe deeper, sleep better, smile more easily, and have more energy for other areas of life. This doesn't happen when you give up on something that should truly persist. When you abandon something that was meant to be yours, the feeling is one of emptiness, regret, constant restlessness, that discomfort that won't leave you in peace. But when you let go of something that the divine wanted you to let go of, the predominant feeling is one of liberation, even if it comes with sadness for the loss of what you imagined it could be. Think of a concrete situation. You're in a relationship that hasn't been good for you for months or years, but you continue because you've already invested so much time, because you're afraid of loneliness, because you don't want to admit you made the wrong choice. So you postpone the difficult conversation, you postpone the separation, you continue in a dead relationship simply out of inertia and fear. But when you finally find the courage to end it, do you know what happens? In the first few days there may be sadness, there may be the natural pain of grief, but beneath it all there is an unmistakable feeling that you did the right thing, that you freed yourself from a prison, that you can finally breathe again. And the more time passes, the clearer this feeling of relief becomes, until you wonder why on earth it took you so long to make that decision. Or you're in a toxic job that's destroying your mental health, but you don't quit because you need the money, because you're afraid you won't find anything else, because you feel guilty about leaving the team. So you keep dragging yourself to that place every day, increasingly exhausted, increasingly unhappy. But when you finally gather the courage and quit, even without having something guaranteed afterward, do you know what often happens? A feeling of peace so profound that it surprises you. You expected to feel panic, extreme anxiety, immediate regret. But instead you feel a quiet certainty that you're on the right path, an inexplicable confidence that things will align, a lightness you haven't experienced in years. This is the universe confirming that you finally answered the call, that you finally listened to the signs, that you finally allowed the door to close so that new and better ones can open. Now, it's important not to confuse this with that temporary feeling of relief that comes from avoiding responsibilities or running away from legitimate challenges. When you give up on something out of laziness, irrational fear, or lack of discipline, the initial relief quickly gives way to regret and the feeling that you wasted an opportunity. But when you walk away from something that the divine wanted you to walk away from, the peace persists, deepens over time, and is often accompanied by new opportunities that begin to emerge almost miraculously. So, pay attention to this crucial difference. If you are considering giving up on something and just thinking about it already makes you feel relieved, if imagining your life without that situation brings you a feeling of lightness instead of emptiness, this is an extremely strong sign that that door should indeed be closed. On the other hand, if the thought of giving up fills you with anticipatory regret, if you feel you would be betraying yourself by abandoning it, then perhaps it's just a difficult moment in something that is still worthwhile. The universe speaks through your deepest and most authentic feelings. Learn to distinguish between the fear of the unknown, which is natural, and the peace that confirms you are making the right decision. Sign 9. New and better opportunities arise immediately after you accept the closing of the old door. And finally, we arrive at the 9th and final sign, the one that shows you in a crystal clear way the difference between a temporarily closed door that you should keep trying to open and a door definitively sealed for your protection. Taurus, this sign is the most beautiful and powerful confirmation that the universe wasn't punishing you by closing that door. It was redirecting you to something infinitely better that you didn't even know existed. It works like this. While you are desperately trying to break down a closed door, insisting on what isn't flowing, forcing situations that clearly don't want to materialize, all your energy and attention are focused in that specific direction. And because you are so obsessed with that single possibility, you become completely blind to all the other doors that are opening around you. You don't see the alternative opportunities because you are convinced that there is only one path to your happiness, to your success, to your fulfillment. But the moment you finally let go, when you accept that that door won't open, when you make peace with the closure and allow yourself to look in other directions, something magical happens. Suddenly, you start noticing doors that were always there but that you completely ignored. People appear in your life with proposals you wouldn't have even considered before. Opportunities arise from unexpected places. Paths you never imagined become possible. And often these new possibilities are much better, much more aligned with who you really are, much more capable of bringing you genuine fulfillment than that closed door ever could have. Let me give you concrete examples of this. You spent years trying to get accepted into a specific course, at a specific university, convinced that this was the only path to the professional success you desired. You tried once, twice, 3 times and were always rejected. Frustrated and exhausted, you finally accept that perhaps that isn't your path and decide to explore alternatives. And then you discover a different program at another institution that is actually much more aligned with your true passions and opens doors that first course never could. Either you discover that you don't even need that specific degree to pursue the career that truly excites you, that there are far more interesting alternative paths you never considered because you were obsessed with that single route. Or you spent years in a relationship that wasn't working trying to make it work, convinced that that person was your soulmate, and that you would never find anyone better. You ignored all the signs of incompatibility because you were attached to the idea of what that relationship could be. Finally, you end it, go through the grieving process and open yourself up to new possibilities. And then you meet someone who makes you realize that what you called love before was actually just attachment and familiarity. This new person treats you in a way you didn't even know was possible, values you in ways the previous one never did, and the relationship flows with an ease you've never experienced before. And you look back and thank the universe for closing that previous door, because if it had remained open, you would never have had space in your life for this far superior connection. Or perhaps you struggled for years to grow in a company that simply didn't value you, where you were stagnant, where your ideas were never heard, but you persisted because you had security, a stable salary, and benefits. Eventually, you are fired or you quit, devastated because that was the only job you knew, the only source of income you trusted. But then, a few months later, you are hired by another company that recognizes your value from day one, pays you better, gives you real growth opportunities, and has a culture that respects who you are. And you realize that if you hadn't been forced out of that closed door, you would never have found this much better open door. This is the most hopeful sign of all because it shows you that trusting in the divine process is not naivete or passivity. When a door closes and you accept that closure with grace instead of bitterness, when you allow yourself to be open to new possibilities instead of dwelling on what you've lost, the universe has room to surprise you with alternatives you never even imagined existed. And usually these alternatives are so superior to what you were pursuing that, over time, you become grateful for the door that was closed. So, stubborn and persistent Taurus, here's the final lesson. Not every closed door should be broken down. Some are closed forever for very good reason, and your stubbornness in trying to open them only prevents you from seeing all the other wonderful doors that are opening around you. Learn to recognize the 9 signs we discussed today. When you see these patterns forming in your life, have the wisdom to stop, breathe, and accept that perhaps, just perhaps, the universe knows what it's doing. And when you finally let go of what wasn't meant to be, prepare to be surprised by the abundance of better things that the divine was saving for you all along. So, my dear Taurus, we have reached the end of this journey of revelations. If you have made it this far, it is because these words have touched something deep within you, and that is no coincidence. The universe guided you to this message at exactly the moment you most needed to hear it. Now you have knowledge, you are aware of the signs, you know how to recognize when a door is closed for your protection and not as punishment. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue forcing sealed doors, wasting your precious life energy on battles that are not yours to win? Or will you have the courage and wisdom to accept divine redirection, trusting that something better awaits you on the other side of surrender? The choice has always been and always will be yours, but now you can no longer say that you didn't know, that you weren't warned, that you didn't understand the signs. They are all around you, they have been discussed in detail, you now have the map. Use it wisely. Trust the process. Accept that sometimes the greatest blessing is what you cannot achieve, not what you do achieve. And remember, your stubbornness can be your greatest strength when applied to the right paths, but it can be your greatest weakness when used to swim against the divine current. Learn the difference and your life will never be the same. If these words resonated in your heart, if you felt this message reached you at a critical moment in your journey, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. We are preparing especially to help you on this path of self-knowledge and transformation. Comment below telling me which of these 9 signs you are experiencing now, which touched you most deeply, which gave you that moment of clarity. I love reading every comment. I love knowing where you are watching from. I love being part of this beautiful community we are building together. And if you feel in your heart that this work has value, that these messages are truly making a difference in your life, consider supporting the channel by becoming a subscriber. Your contribution allows this work to continue, allowing this guidance to reach more and more people who need this light, this hope, this transformative knowledge. Together, we are creating a spiritual support network, a community of awakened souls who help each other on this journey of evolution. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for every minute you dedicated to this message. May the divine continue to guide you, protect you, and show you the right paths. May you have the wisdom to recognize the doors that should remain closed and the courage to cross those that are opening for you. A huge hug to your heart, and until the next message, where we will continue together on this beautiful journey of awakening and transformation. May the blessings of the universe always be with you.